If you were concerned about breaking up cancer in the back, wouldn't you be concerned also about clearing out the lymphatic system before breaking up a miasm or a tumor in the lymphatic?
The question we will cover at a later time.
I just had a quick question for John. Have you actually ever seen a miasmic spot like that disappear from somebody's eyes from the use of a homeopathic remedy?
The answer to that is yes, just like Lil has suggested here. Now, I have also seen it with the release of an entity. I have seen it also disappear. Now, I want you all to understand that a weakness or a hole in the auric field can be genetically inherited. And if you have a hole in the auric field that is genetically inherited, then by the law of economy, it must be filled. And oftentimes you'll have people where the great-grandmother has had entities, then the grandmother has entities, and then the mother has entities, the daughter has entities, and all the grandchildren have entities, and so on down the line. Because you have inherited a weakness. You've inherited a hole in the auric field genetically, which leaves a predisposition for entity involvement. And if it is true that all disease are entity related, there have been cases where when the entity is released from the individual, immediately there's a change in the iris of the eye, and I've seen that many times, including the dismissal of these little sphere shapes.
Thank you.
I'm still not quite sure what a miasm is. I'm sorry. Perhaps I'm being very stupid.
As far as what you have in the body, we're using the term as synonymous with a growth in that it's solid as opposed to hollow like a tumor. But also miasm is more or less a homeopathic term that refers to a genetic type situation. So the concept here is that this will represent a growth, but that the reason it's there in the first place is some sort of genetic factor, which is why in order to get rid of it or overcome it with body electronics, you're typically going to have some sort of genetic memory come up, where it might go back one or more generations.
There are many types of miasms. For example, you may have a fat miasm, where there's a genetic weakness and the person is terribly overweight. You may have a tubercular miasm. And if you have a tubercular miasm, here's where you have a weakness in the lungs. May I have the lights for a moment, please? Please. You may have a weakness in the lungs, wherein an individual, when he's going through a healing crisis on this tubercular miasmic condition, will have a reenactment where they will actually have in their body for a period of time the tuberculosis germs, so to speak, while they're going through that particular healing crisis. You have a syphilitic miasm, oftentimes resulting in crooked teeth, where if a person has crooked teeth, usually this is from a syphilitic miasm. Now, you have one individual who is very high up in the CIA, a very good friend of mine. Now, this gentleman here had a situation where he had one problem. His back was all bent over terribly, and he came to me for me to work on his back. In the meantime, unbeknownst to us, we were dealing with a syphilitic miasm. And he had a huge, huge boil break out on his rear end, and he went to have it tested in Los Angeles. And what took place is when they had lanced the thing and took a look at all of the pus that was in there, he said that there was more germs of a syphilitic nature there that would destroy the whole lower half of California. Now, I thought about that, and then suddenly these things all disappeared just as mysteriously as they came. Now, he had never had syphilis, but in dealing with the syphilitic miasm, the syphilis germ, spirochete, returned to his body for him to deal with in a cleansing sort of way, which was the boil. Now, I want you to understand that whenever you suppress things by the use of drugs, that these things do return to you to be dealt with. One case, Dr. Bernard Jensen told me how this one person had all of these little lice in their head, and he said how they treated that with a little lice killer, like a sheep dip type of thing, and it killed all the lice. But during a healing crisis, all the lice came back into the person's head. Now, I thought to myself, that's pretty ridiculous. I didn't tell him that, but inwardly I scoffed all over the place. Until one time up at Long Lake, Minnesota, we had a large seminar there, and we had a gentleman there by the name of Bob Arnett. Now, a couple of you might know Bob Arnett. He's quite a colorful man. Bob had crawling all over him one day crabs. He was living in this one home that was open to him with about 8 other people, all of them women. And he had all these crabs crawling all over him, and he didn't know where they came from. Now, if you don't know what a crab is, he couldn't figure out where he got crabs, and he is the only one in the establishment that had them. They're crawling all over him. And then he showed them to me. He said, "John, what in the world are these?" And he showed all these pimples around his private area where all these pimples were popping out, and each time this pimple popped, a little crab would crawl out of there. And I looked at that, and I was a little disgusted over it because the smell was terrible. And he had all this brown, oozing stuff coming out of his skin. And he smelled it, and I smelled it, and we couldn't figure out what that was. Then he remembered years ago when he was in Turkey. He was in the Signal Corps. They stopped off at this little motel. It was a dirty little old motel. That's the only thing available. And he came out with a good case of crabs. So they took him down to a local doctor that smeared all this brown salve around there. That took care of the crabs. Problem gone. And then about 20 to 30 years later, then, in body electronics, had his points held a few times, and suddenly this terrible brown stuff oozed out from his skin with all these little bumps and these just hundreds of little crabs crawling all over the place. Now, strangely enough, my friends, when he went through the memory of it, the crabs disappeared like that, as quickly as they came. Now, you tell me what the theory is involved in this. What's the theory involved in this?
Well, I think if you look at the situation that John's described there of 20, 30 years of time elapsed between when the crabs were first suppressed and when they eventually came out, I think there's no possible way to really explain that physically. I don't think there's any way you can argue that there were like dormant eggs in his crotch for 20 or 30 years. I don't think there's any possible way you could anybody would really buy that argument. So basically, I think what you have to understand here is that the physical universe is going to respond to the energy patterns that are being emitted by the intelligence. And basically, you have a suppression of that experience, which is basically not just a physical suppression of the actual crabs and the brown salve, but it's a suppression of the underlying patterns or on the inner level, the patterns of thought, word, and emotion from the entire experience. This is then stored in the crystalline structure of the body. In actual, the information content of that experience, which is the thought patterns, which is the sensory memory, the word patterns, and the emotional patterns, this is all locked within the crystalline structure of the physical body. as this is released from the crystals under the influence of the nutritional program and the point holding, then this energy is being re-emitted out into the universe, and basically the universe will correspond to that. In other words, the outer it's re-manifested. So the crabs, it's not that those crabs have actually existed in the physical universe for 20 or 30 years. It's just that they're re-manifested as the individual goes back through that energy pattern.
Now this is what Dr. Bernard Jensen taught us, which I didn't believe, and I scoffed at it. And I didn't believe until I saw it on Bob Arnett and have seen the same thing on other people.
We had a gentleman by the name of George Christie, who's, by the way, the guy that coined the term that we're all delightful deviations from the norm. Lewis wanted to be the BE historian, so I mentioned that for his benefit. George Christie was in a visualization and consciousness course out on Maui, Hawaii in 1987, and he had been a naval commander. And back in his younger days, I believe it would have been back in about the 1950s or late 1940s, but at any rate, at least 35 or 40 years previous, he had lice on his head, and these lice had been suppressed. This was when he was in the Navy as a young man. And during one day during the visualization and consciousness class, I believe under the influence of a niacin flush as well, he had at this point in his life didn't really have a lot of hair on the top, so you could get quite a good view of the whole experience. He went back through that experience, and you actually had temporarily the reappearance on his scalp of the lice. And probably for, 20, 30 minutes anyways, after which time they were no longer present, and nobody else got them. They just seemed to sort of reappear and then disappear reappear briefly and then disappear.
All right, let's look at something here, please. And I want Doug to go into a long discourse on Gaston naissance. Can you do that, Doug? Okay, pleomorphism. Okay, we're going to go now into a whole area here, and I want to have the discussion here on pleomorphism, which is basically this concept. Which is the physical universe is determined by the entire morphogenetic field, which is determined by the very presence of thought, feeling, and spoken word. In other words, germs do not cause disease, but the condition within the body determines the type of germs that there are. You've got some of the greatest men in history who understand this concept. And pleomorphism, as you know it, this will eventually be taking over the entire scientific world and will be taught in all of your advanced schools of learning. So, Doug, I want you to go into detail on Gaston naissance concepts, which could be the same thing as several other brilliant men who have discovered this independently, the same principle of pleomorphism, by studying and realizing that when you take the physical universe and change the medium, as they call it, the germs or the various forms of bacteria will then go through their changes. Now, I want Doug to go into this in detail, and I want you to listen very carefully. Hold your questions, please. Pardon? Pardon? Well, this is what Doug's going to cover in detail, so hold your questions, please. I said it the way I said it. It's on the tape.
Okay, the concept we want to look at, first of all, is the concept of pleomorphism, which is up there in the board. And the term basically means change of form. Now, there have been a number of individuals within living things. There have been a number of individuals down through the years who have been able to, as John said, independently discover this concept and prove it out. One such gentleman who's alive today is Gaston Nassens, who's actually, it's right up there on the board. He's a Frenchman who actually lives in Canada, up in Quebec. And there have been a number of others. Actually, back over 100 years ago, you had another Frenchman by the name of Anton Béchamp, who was a contemporary of Louis Pasteur, and he taught much the same concept. The basic principle is fairly simple. The environment determines the microbe. I mean, if we look at it in the simplest form, I'll tie it in on a higher level in a little bit, but at the simplest level, it's not the presence or absence of particular germs that make anybody sick. The thing to realize is the germs are an effect, not a cause. If you have a particular environment in the body, you are going to then manifest a particular germ. Every single person here, if you just look in your lungs alone, you probably have virtually every single germ known to man somewhere in your lungs. Now, obviously, you don't have most of those diseases because you don't have the proper environment elsewhere so that those organisms can spread. Are you following this? I didn't get that joke, but okay. Okay, basically what Gaston Nassens... How many people here are familiar with this gentleman? Okay, well, basically what he's observed is that under... Okay, you got the article. Bottom line, you can change the environment. Like, you can take a particular microbe, like a particular bacteria or a particular virus, and you can have that where it'll be present in a certain type of environment. You can change the environment, which might involve changing the mineral concentration, the saline concentration, the temperature, the pH, and all sorts of factors. But you change the environment in which that microorganism exists, and the microorganism changes. You change, like, for example, you might start off with a pure culture of streptococcus. Pure culture of streptococcus. You might simply alter the environment, and all of a sudden you don't have any more streptococcus, you have nothing but staphylococcus. Okay? Totally contradicts the germ theory, because most people would say, well, I got strep because I got strep. You know, I got strep because I got exposed to the germ. You know, I was in school and I caught a cold, or I got the flu because somebody else had the flu.
How many of you remember who had that optical microscope years and years ago that was more powerful than anything else ever? What was his name? Royal Raymond Rife. What did he do? He took E. coli, which is an intestinal bacteria, and he developed a culture of it until that culture was shaped in the culture like a bell-shaped curve. You know how you have bacterial growth. He took and added iron to the culture. And the E. coli slowly changed from E. coli as we know it to the tetanus bacteria, which is quite deadly, just by adding iron. Now, you know people who get iron if they get a nail in their leg or something like that, they have a tetanus shot to protect them from getting tetanus. Well, in this case, the iron is a catalyst which helps to create a medium in which the tetanus bacteria can form. But it didn't form from the iron itself. It formed from where there was a conversion of the E. coli to the tetanus. And then he changed the medium again, and the tetanus converted over to a typhoid. And that's another deadly pathogen. And then when they took that typhoid medium, or the typhoid culture, changed the medium again back to the original one in which the E. coli was formed, the typhoid moved back into the E. coli. Are you hearing me? So therefore, the medium determined the very type of bacteria which formed. Do you get the magnitude of this? This was discovered by Wilhelm Reich. This was discovered by Royal Rife. This was discovered by many, many other people. Beauchamp, and so on, right on down the line. Now, this is something where it becomes a political issue, because back about 1934, Royal Rife took his findings as a medical doctor to the American Medical Association, and there was a vote on it, and the germ theory predominated because of the influence of the pharmaceutical industry. Did you know that? Okay, read the stories about it and you'll find that's true. Now, this is a very important aspect of it, because it's not the germ theory. A lot of people hang on to that archaic, outdated, barbaric method or the idea that germs cause disease. Every single individual, if you check their lungs out very, very carefully and take them in each of the little sacs of the lung, which has a different culture, a different medium, it has every single disease factor known to man. Now, how come these don't develop if these germs cause disease? It's because the medium in which they're developing is not conducive for the development of that one particular virus or that one particular bacteria or that one particular parasite or whatever you're dealing with there. Do you follow me? Now, this is important. Now, I want Doug to go ahead again.
I'm still kind of laughing over the concept that we can vote on what's true or not. I mean, it's a scientific method at its finest. I mean, let's forget experimentation. Let's just vote, you know.
But they rejected Rife at that time. When they rejected Rife, they just put him on. They ignored him completely as the American Medical Association and would not accept any of his scientific findings, which were some of the greatest that the world has ever seen.
So basically, the first thing we're looking at here, which is your pleomorphism, is that the environment determines the microbe. Let's look at this at a different level here. You could say, on the one hand, the energy patterns that exist in a given space are going to determine the structure of matter there. And this applies directly to the couple of stories, the 2 or 3 stories we've told you about, like lice reappearing in individuals. Or crabs, or any of these types of little critters. When the energy pattern shifts, then physical matter is going to respond to this energy pattern. And you'll have all sorts of things take place. Like, look at some of the things that some of you have seen here during healing crisis. Scar tissue disappearing, hair changing color, eye changing color, the eyes changing color. The energy patterns are changing, and as a result of that, the structure of physical matter is going to change. There is what is referred to as a morphogenetic field. A morphogenetic field. Can you write up? When you guys write that up there? Morphogenetic field, and this is the energy field that will determine the structure of physical matter. Now, here's something that you all need to consider. What is it that determines the energy field or the morphogenetic field in the first place? It'll be the thought or the consciousness, and that is at all levels. That's individually, collectively, at the human level, at the cellular level, genetic level, at higher levels of intelligence. There's no place in the universe where intelligence does not exist. There's no place or no space in the universe where intelligence does not exist. So you have to understand when I say that intelligence is determining the structure of the morphogenetic field, which in turn determines the structure of matter, I'm not limiting that to our own intelligence at this level. This is all level of intelligence everywhere, every when. Is that clear to everyone? This is all intelligence everywhere, every when. I believe John used the term in, I think in book 3, that one of the books there, that something to the effect that God is the summation of all, this may not be it exactly, but God is the summation of all intelligence everywhere, every when. Yeah. So just consider in that sense, we are a level of intelligence, each one of us here, which means ultimately that we're all part of God. And yet so is everything else around us. There's intelligence in the table here. There's intelligence in the rocks, in the trees, in the flowers, some of which we've been speaking about in the past week. So all intelligence is helping to shape the morphogenetic field.
Bottom line, there is no separation. This is an illusion. There is only oneness and unity. And we are all one.
So what can you tell us about any contagious diseases? I mean, how do they fit into your pleomorphism?
If you have star patterns in a certain area, and you have certain energies which are coming from the stars, and the planets, and the sun and the moon, and when they all hit certain configurations, giving their energies, or what we call their light, unto one another in their particular times and their particular seasons, okay, you're going to have an energy pattern which is affecting all of humanity in a given area. And when that pattern of astrological influence affects a whole segment of a community, then their crystals, which are of a common nature, are going to get rattled. And when those crystals are rattled, they put out an energy field which controls the very essence of matter itself, or the environment of this particular body. And when the environments are all the same, it's going to be conducive to the same type of bacterial involvement, and thus you have a plague or an epidemic.
Okay, without going into a plague concept, if we just look at the common cold, am I correct in saying that every winter we've known for years and years that a certain amount of people get colds? The radio advertised that we need our flu shots or cold shots, and so therefore the collective thinking creates the ability for the cold virus, and we go to work and the person we work next to gets a cold, and so we create the cold in that manner. Is that basically what's happening?
Not quite. The conditions create a condition in the people where certain people have a common environmental stress factor which creates an environment within their body where they'll have a common type of disease, quote unquote. And they'll catch it and nobody else will. Did I make that clear? It's the environment which determines the microbe, and the environment, or the shall I use the word the environment? There's another name for it, which is a French word, which is the terrain, which determines then which microbe is capable then of proliferating, so to speak, in that particular environment. Pardon me? Our own personal thinking, if it is in the same type of thinking, can create that same common environment. But let's look at it this way. Where do the bacteria come from? And I'd like to have Doug go into what they call the chondriana, or that aspect of it. Doug, if you would, please. What's the other names for it as you know it? That's from Merkel, or the somatid, from microzyme from Beauchamp.
I think Enderlin or somebody had a bionts, or I think it was another term, but there's a lot of different terms that you've had over the years. Somatids, SOMATIDS, TIDS. And chondriana, CHONDRIANA. Okay. It's right on the board there. And then also BION, bion. And microzymes, or microzymas, I think it was, with an A. Microzymas. Z, yeah, then MA. Yeah, MA. There's been a number of different scientists over the last, I guess, 100, 150 years who have observed that there are subcellular particles that seem to exist virtually independent of the cells themselves. They may exist within the cells, they may exist exterior to the cells, but they do seem to have a certain level of indestructibility where even when the body dies and the cells perish, these subcellular particles they do continue on independent of us. Some of you that have read some of the work of, in this day and age, of Gaston Naessens are familiar with that, where he'll use the term the somatids for that. There's another gentleman in this day and age by the name of George Merkel, Merkl, who has the chondriana. I mean, this is his terminology. But basically, these seem to be an intelligence that is, as we said earlier, there's no place where intelligence does not exist. And both the somatids and the chondriana, in the observation of Naessens and Merkel, they will exist independent of us. They will be found within our bodies, within the cells, within the fluid between the cells. And yet, when our body ceases, when our body perishes, and so forth, they survive. They continue on, and basically they adapt to whatever environment they find themselves in, and they behave in a very, very intelligent fashion. The somatid cycle that Gaston Naessens has described, in a healthy body, you'll find that there's a three-phase cycle where it goes from one phase to another phase to a third phase and back to the first. There's a repetitive pattern of three separate phases. When the environment within that individual starts to break down, or in other words, when the health of that individual starts to decline, this three-phase cycle, I think it's, is it a 16-phase? 16-phase, it changes into a 16-phase cycle that involves all these aberrant forms, various yeasts and spores and all sorts of other things. And when you find this in the blood, viruses and all sorts of other things. And so basically John's initial question is, where do the microbes come from? Basically, they're already there because you always have the somatids or the chondriana. You always have these subcellular levels of intelligence that are present within us but are not really us. And as our own environment changes as a result of our own foolishness, these are going to adapt to the environment and change into whatever type of microbe is necessary.
Now, Doug, let's look at that. Can they change to something other than a microbe? Can they change to a crab or to a louse on the head? Now let's look at that. How far does this thing go? I mean, if one microbe can change to another microbe, which is determined by the terrain in which it's found, how far can that go? I mean, listen, this has tremendous ramifications for people.
I've never extended it quite that far, John.
Think about it. I thought about it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not too sure either on that one, because
this is the only way I can think of where during a healing crisis, how you can recreate a condition where literally a louse comes from nowhere. Now, I have seen my myology instructor in chiropractic college. We had to do a lot of work on dissecting muscles and so on. And my myology instructor, he sat us all down one day. He says, "I want to tell you something." And he used the word, and you'll hear about it, called spontaneous regeneration. And he went through and said, if you sterilize something absolutely completely, sterilize it absolutely completely, and at a high heat, and then you put all of this into an enclosed area, he says, strangely enough, within a short time, you'll have all forms of bacteria, which seems to appear out of nowhere. And we did experiment after experiment under total sterile circumstances. And each time you'd have a regeneration of all kinds of little animals, that would exist normally in a water area, which would explain how these things can form in areas where you have, drought conditions. You have drought conditions way off in the desert, and you have a little pocket of water. Then you look at the little pocket of water under a microscope, where it's been baked for 5 or 10 years, and all of a sudden here's all these little water creatures in there. Where they come from? Well, you take a look at that very carefully, and if you have the understanding of these little somatids or chondriana and so on, then these are the basic forms of life which will then fill literally the medium in which they're found until they can form exactly what would be suitable to the terrain in which they're found.
We've seen a lot of... Graham?
So this would also be like the soil microbes that Sam Catalano spoke about when he increased the minerals in the soil.
Yes. We've had a lot of things happen in body electronics over the years that are pretty difficult to explain physically. And you talk about these things like the lice reappearing and disappearing, and you start to also look at things like steel rods disappearing and reappearing, and levitation and all sorts of things. And if you'll pardon the pun, I've scratched my head in this area quite a bit trying to figure out what's going on, and trying to change the environment to see if anything would appear. And I've wondered a lot about that, and I've had the question. Now, let's take we told the story last week about when Eugene Drews was holding point on that one fella, Don Adair, and the steel mesh disappeared from his spine. And the silver amalgam and Eugene were no longer there, and he had perfect teeth again. And the thing that I've considered a lot over the years is this. I can recall being out on Maui in a situation where this one gentleman had steel rods on either side of his spine, the Harrington rods. And I remember on a number of occasions watching those rods disappear, where they would absolutely cease to exist. And I remember on one of those occasions one evening, they reappeared in the amount of time that it took for his girlfriend to walk from the front door to the center of the living room. That much time or less. You'll I'm sure remember that.
You were there, weren't you, Jim?
Yeah, Jim. Yeah.
Okay. What I was doing is teaching him how to increase the vibratory rate of his body, which would put that above the iron rods, and he learned how to do that just fine. But he couldn't hold it there. And I mean, these were these big 3/8 inch regular steel rods that you call the Harrington rods that are put in because he had an injury to his spine, and that had to be stabilized to keep that keep him from dying, so to speak, because he had a spot there where he had no vertebrae. At 10th thoracic vertebrae was totally destroyed in a industrial accident. Now, what happened was the steel rods were there, and then he had increased the vibratory rate of his body, which we're not going to go into in this class. And as that was increased, then the steel rods literally disappeared, and he was free to have complete freedom to do his yoga. By that time, we had worked on the spine, and the 10th thoracic vertebrae had reconstructed. Now, and the discs. So he had a perfectly normal spine. But the steel rods were still there. Now, what went wrong?
Well, the thing to realize here is you can change the energy pattern all you want. You can alter, out of the conscious mind, or box 1, you can alter the energy pattern all you want, but it's only going to be temporary unless there's also a change of consciousness out of box 2, the unconscious mind. In other words, you can consciously manipulate the energy pattern, which is box 1 activity, the conscious mind, what you're aware of. You can consciously manipulate the energy pattern, and that will often produce some fairly dramatic results. In this individual's case, the steel rods totally disappeared in probably less than 20 minutes, if I recall correctly. They were totally gone. Remember that, Jim? This is box 1. This is the conscious mind.
Will and desire.
Through the exercise of will and desire and the conscious mind, box 1, he was able to alter his energy pattern, and then physical matter will come into conformity with that new energy pattern, and no more steel rods. The glitch here is this. The energy pattern is ultimately determined through the interaction of box 1, which is the conscious mind, as well as box 2, the unconscious mind. In this exercise that he was doing, nothing whatsoever was changed in box 2. All of the resistances, all of the judgments, all of the reactive patterns, all of the suppressed trauma is still there in box 2. It hasn't been dealt with at all. The moment his attention wavered one bit, the moment he ceased to hold in a state of creation with will and desire that new energy pattern, that energy pattern ceased to exist. The moment he ceased to do that, the moment he ceased to exercise that will and desire, the new energy pattern's gone. Out of box 2, out of the unconscious mind, that energy pattern's been there all along, and it simply comes back into manifestation, and the steel rods reappear.
Now, here, what he was doing was working on his own physical body from the outside in, changing energy patterns. He was not re-experiencing from the inside out the thought patterns, word patterns, and emotional patterns which brings the morphogenetic field into existence, thus the human body and the steel rods combine with it. And therefore, so you have two ways of handling disease, one from a sheer force of desire and will on one hand, and secondly, by doing what is necessary to recreate that which we choose to receive from suppressed patterns of the past. Is that clear? Jim, is that clear? Pardon me? We're working on it now, my friend. We've been working on this every day as fast as we can feed it to you. Now you're learning the principles, but doggone it, we're not going to. If you don't learn responsibility, and we turn you loose with a grenade in your hand, you're going to destroy yourself in the process. Okay, and you're going to get. Call her maggot for short.
So we change the environment.
Are we on? Is there any hum? Yeah. We're all right. Environment's right. No more maggots. Okay. No more gremlins. Now, bottom line then, there's two ways of doing this. One, manipulating the energy from the outside in, which we're not here to learn. And the other is being responsible for the karmic considerations that we've already established and learning how to clean those out by the laws of love, light, and perfection. Now we've got work to do on that. Where's the lights go off? Hello? So that's the switch. Okay, that's good. I didn't see anybody over there by it. Okay? And so consequently, what we want to learn how to do then is learn to observe our own creations that we have set into operation eons and eons ago, which are holding us in a karmic entrapment. Choose to receive that energy. The window just fell out. Okay? And choose to receive that energy and then recreate it in the laws that we're learning to do now by visualization, and then releasing it after we have encompassed the duality which is associated with that visualization. That's simple. It is the simplest thing in the world. You observe the energies around you. You choose to receive whichever energy you want around you. You become selective in your appraisal of the matter, and you choose to receive what you want to receive. And then what you receive, then you're holding it there, then simply recreate it with visualization. Just recreate it in your mind. And you're recreating the thought, feeling, and spoken word. Just like Corey was intermittently recreating coffee over there when he was going through his healing crisis. I'm sorry Anita wasn't here. She could have sniffed that clear across the room. And anyway, after you've done that, and you have recreated the situation, then you get the duality of that and hold it there till the vibration of regeneration is complete, and then you simply release it. It's that simple. No problem. No problem. Now you'll all do that before the time is over here. And then you'll have to watch every single thought. You'll have to watch every single word, because all you'll have to do is think, and it'll manifest before you. Now this manifestation is a very important aspect, and this is what we're looking at now relative to the pleomorphism.
Okay, this is my question then. If we're considering on the one hand microbes changing form, we're still basically dealing with what you might call a conservation of matter type principle. When you start to think, well, maybe that's what's happening with the crabs and the lice too, that they're being formed out of other particles that already exist, I'm looking at this whole idea of the rods disappearing and then reappearing, where they, in this particular incident that Jim saw, they reappeared in a matter of, just a couple of seconds.
They simply reappeared when he was... Let me go back and remember all the details, okay? If you remember, he wanted to go back to California and prove to everybody that he could dissolve the Harrington rods. And the moment that he had to prove to everybody, then at that moment fear entered in, and the fear recreated the Harrington rods that quickly. That's what happened.
Okay, so my question is this, and this is a question I've had asked a lot at seminars. When the steel rods disappear, does the substance that made them up cease to exist, or does it turn into something else? And then when they reappear, is it made out of something else, or they simply exist again?
When you increase the vibratory rate of something, it does go through a definite, tangible change. Just like when you go through the vibratory rate and you increase the vibratory rate of the body, where the body ceases to be because people can no longer see it. It's that simple. You follow me? The rods ceased to exist as far as your and my perception was concerned, but at another level it was still there because he hadn't transmuted the whole thing. Now see, this is the difference. We're not into just holding it there, we're into transmuting it. By transmuting it, it's gone. Poof.
That's how I've understood it in the past, that the rods would cease to exist and then they would be recreated when he fell back into the resistance pattern. At this level. So if that's the case, then why would the crabs, as they reappear, have to come from something else? Couldn't they just all of a sudden start to exist again at this level? I mean, in other words, instead of them being made up out of somatids, couldn't they simply just all of a sudden come into existence at this level again?
I don't know.
I don't either. That's why I'm asking.
I'll have to go upstairs on that.
Yeah, but you see what? Because I'm all. I'm thinking of the apple leaf, which I don't know if you want to touch that now, but I'm thinking of that.
Very simple. I swore I would never use this technology unless I had to. What I learned from my teacher one time was the simplicity of creation and uncreation. And I came back to my home back in Portland, Oregon, and I took a look at a little crabapple tree, and I thought, well, I'm going to try this again. And I took a little tiny crabapple leaf off of the tree. I didn't ask for permission. And I felt the temperature of that little crabapple leaf. I was very keenly aware of the form of that crabapple leaf. I felt the weight of that crabapple leaf. I could feel the life pulsing going through that crabapple leaf. I took every single sensory quality from the color to the form to everything about that crabapple leaf you can think of. And I brought that into my mind where I had all of the equal components of every single physical aspect of that crabapple leaf. And then in the same space and in the same time, I simply looked at that crabapple leaf, and I took and recreated every aspect of that crabapple leaf together, and the thing went poof. And I went to look at that, and all there was a little place where it was on the tree. The stem mark was still there, but the leaf was totally gone. And I thought, oh, what a hell of a responsibility. And I swore I would never use that unless I had to, which I haven't used it unless I had to. But this is where you take anything physical, and you take every single physical property of that particular physical object, recreate it all simultaneously, and it'll literally disappear into oblivion. Now that's the way it is. Now, each of you are doing that now with scar tissue. Some of you have scar tissue on your abdomen which is no longer there. And you simply recreated all of the energy pertaining to that scar tissue, recreated, and poof, the scar tissue is gone. Is that any different than a leaf on a tree? Is that any different than a bump on the head? Is that any different than a calcification in the spine? No. So you are already, all of you are learning how to do that, because by recreating the energy in a calcification in the toe, the calcification in the toe goes away, and the body simply reconstructs. Where's the problem, my friends? Think about this. This is very, very important. Yes? Come up here.
No problem. It's just that we're actively, I thought we were just actively, not picturing reconstructing the toe, but we're reconstructing an event, and so it's indirect in a way, what we're doing, right?
Did everybody hear that? Be responsible for your communication.
What we're doing is it seems to be a little bit more indirect than reconstructing the leaf and making it go away, by say I have an ache in my toe, what I'm really doing is going into memories, and indirectly, my toe, I find after the process, the toe's gone. No. You know what I'm saying, right?
We're not being passive. We're not being inactive. We're being very, very powerfully active in using the process of visualization to re-experience that which we at one time suppressed in our experience, which has held the outer manifestation in a continual state of creativity. So we're simply recreating that which we have suppressed. Now this is important work that we're doing. It's not a simple thing. It's a very active process because we're dealing with thought, feeling, and spoken word, which are the creators of the morphogenetic field, which determines the very structure of matter itself. Yes, sir. Did you take off your hood?
Okay, so how do these principles apply to materializing something instead of dematerializing it?
We're not getting into that now. I told you that. Pardon? Yes, but we're not going to go into that here. You didn't. Yes. Did I make the leaf reappear? No, it disappeared entirely.
When you thought of all aspects of the leaf, it just disappeared. You didn't think to make it disappear. That just was the natural consequence of that action?
It was a natural consequence of that action, the same way that you dissolve scar tissue on your abdomen. Okay? Now this is the way it is, folks. And the thing is, I'm not going to use it, so don't get worried about it, unless I have to. Okay, Jim.
This is kind of a question. You ask, where's the problem with that? I'm not sure. I'd kind of like the answer, too. When we work on ourselves, when we work on our big toe to get rid of this or that, that's fine. When we work on clearing things out of our way, spiritually, psychically, whatever, it can extend out pretty easily out to clearing a lot of things out of our life or manifesting a lot of things in.
Where's Gloria? Is Gloria here? Do you want to be a subject, Gloria? Do you want to? I'm going to have you relate something that happened over a dinner table in the middle of a restaurant. Do you want to do that? Huh? Do you want to just tell the people a story? Now, just listen, and we're not going to get into this in detail. Gloria, do you mind? Okay. Now, I tell you, there's a lot of people out here that know a lot of history and a lot of quiet things that will never breathe these to a living soul. Gloria's one of them, and if she feels up to it, we'll put you on the hot spot. Turn your head sidewise. The other way. No, look at the profile. Ah. Okay, she's got a story to tell. No? Do you want me to start from the beginning? Yep. Listen carefully to this woman now. This is experience firsthand. Tom, you wanted some secrets? Okay, pay attention. You don't want me to tell the secrets, do you? Yeah. Which one? No. No, not that.
When was it? In September, when we had the seminar.
Speak up much louder.
In September, when we had the seminar on the Gold Coast, Ian and I took Anita and John to dinner at our restaurant. We were sitting, talking, discussing different subjects. And I'm not sure how it came with it.
You're telling me if you remember how you didn't like the notes.
No, you asked me did I want to change and or was there something else?
Oh, go ahead.
we were discussing different methods, Reiki for one and other things, and John said to me, was there anything
Speak
that
up, please.
I felt that I'd like to change? And I said to him, well, that's interesting. And I said to him, yes, there's a bump on my nose I would like to change. And he said, well, that's no problem at all. And he said, well, I'll do it for you, which he did. I put my hand on the lump, and Ian and a friend of ours and John and Anita were all there, and John immediately changed it and it moved, and I felt it, and yes, it had gone. And he said, you can do that yourself. And I thought, my grief.
And then what did I do?
And then he made me do that myself.
What did I do?
What did you do?
I put it back.
Oh yes, John put it back to make sure that it was there, and then it was gone. And then he said, you do it yourself. And I thought, well, is this possible? And he said, yes, it is. So he took me through it, and I did it, and I moved it myself. And to prove that I could do this, on the way back to the seminar the next morning, I decided I'd have another go to see if I could really do it or not. And I did, and exactly what happened. So the sky's the limit when you know what to do.
Okay, but remember the emotion that came out afterward?
Oh yes, it was very moving, you could imagine. If you could do that, just what could you do in the way of healing?
Okay. Now, this was not feigned. Okay, this actually happened. Where's your husband? Is that correct, sir? Yeah, is there anything you want to add to it? Okay, but you knew her nose before. Did it change? Okay, Anita was there? Is this correct? Okay, now this is something that you tell a person this and they think that you're nuttier than a fruitcake. But it's the simplest thing in the world. You can change anything that you want by visualization. If you could change a little thing, you can change a big thing. But I don't want to get into any karmic consideration here, so I did it for her. I let her know how to do it. I changed it back to where it was before. Then she did it. Then she's responsible for it, not me. You got the idea? Okay, Donna. You stay here.
Okay, if we heal or change things in that manner on ourselves or someone else, does that preclude, like, is there a consciousness change or not? Does that completely, is that like a step skipped or one that's not necessary under those circumstances, or what?
In her case, she went through the consciousness change, which made the change permanent. If she hadn't gone through the consciousness change with the release of thought pattern and emotionality, then this would have changed back. Okay? Any questions here? Okay, now we're not going to go into how we did it. Yes, sir. Come up here, Jim.
When you actually burned it off yourself, did you say you noticed the emotions, the thought word pattern? No, okay. What I'm saying is, right, when you used the technique to get it off yourself, did you say you got the same emotional release, word pattern, thought pattern, everything that you would expect ordinarily during point holding when somebody would touch it? So it was a very similar healing to ordinarily what you would experience on the table?
You had burning in your nose?
I guess what I'm getting at is, how do you know there's a change of consciousness other than it didn't come back?
I felt the sensation within my face. I felt vibration. I felt energy change, and with the vibration afterwards for a good 10-15 minutes, I could feel the energy around my face was quite different, and the vibration and pulsing, and yes, a little burning was there. So I was very definite of the change myself.
What'd you have in mind, Jim? We're talking about consciousness change. She had a lot of, as I recall, she had memories of different aspects, and all of that just flash like a kaleidoscope. It just goes through your mind and you let it go.
I was getting at the vibration too.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've experienced pretty rapid healing where there's not that much stuff going on, but it's very heavy vibration.
Okay, what I was getting at is when I first started point holding her, it seems like a long time where you go through the burning, the pain, the electricity, the throbbing, get the memory, and it's a long process. And then lately there's been sometimes that things happen that just goes fairly quickly. There's something that goes fairly quickly. I'm not really sure I understand it. And then there's an intense vibration, just like I'm in all of a magnetic field. The whole body just kind of shakes. And I am unclear if that's a change of consciousness. Something clearly has happened, and I don't know quite how to look at that.
It's a change of energy paving the way for a change of consciousness. But on the emotional body level, that has been transmuted.
If she had not changed consciousness in the process, then the moment she stopped thinking about the new form of the nose, it would have just gone back to the old form, just like with the steel rods. So the answer, your original question was, how do we know she changed consciousness? And I would say the way we know is because she's kept her new nose and she doesn't have to think about it.
Nice little new nose, isn't it? It's working well. Ian, what would you like to add to that from your experience, sir? Here's a strong silent type.
Yes, I found this very interesting when John did this and Gloria did it herself that night. But what she also did, she was so happy to be able to do it that going to the seminar the next morning, which was about a 25-minute drive, here she was putting the bump back in the nose and taking it off, putting it back on, taking it off. In the end I said, for Christ's sake, leave the bloody thing alone. Or you might stay there.
Anything you want to say to your defense? Okay, thank you very much, Gloria.
Well, that sort of is an experience you have in a lifetime, and what was going through my mind was what you could do in the way of healing, and it was just an expansion. The sky was the limit.
Now, the reason that Gloria did what she did was because she was able to visualize in color and form, just like the room here is the way it is. She's able to look at things and see things just like you would see them in the room. She's got very capable visualization capacity.
That's true.
Anything you want to say about that?
No, that's all, thanks.
Okay. And therefore, she qualifies. Thank you very much, Gloria.
Okay, something that I was very impressed to speak on last week, but John brought it up to speak on this week now, so I'm going to speak on it now. I touched on it at one point, but I feel the impact wasn't strong enough for the several people in here. The energy I'm feeling needs to hear this. And it's on the question of we have to use our will and desire to make things happen. Okay? Now, I know a lot of you in this room have serious things wrong with you. Okay? All right, we know we have, if someone has breast cancer, or if they have colon cancer, or if they have leukemia, or if they have this. Okay, we then know that. Okay? After we have received that and we know what we have, okay, then we've got to turn it into a yang situation where we put the will, we put the desire there to say, wow, I'm going to beat this. And I have an example in my own life. I have a whole bunch of cats. And at one time I picked up a parasite from one of the cats, and it really affected my eyes. And this particular parasite covers the eyelid, and actually you can go blind from this, the cornea of the eye, and you can actually go blind from it. And I remember John got really scared. He got so scared when he saw it that he actually called a medical doctor to come over to the house because, he was concerned, that might happen to me. Because it goes pretty quickly, too. It's not something you can work with for a long time. So anyway, the medical doctor came over and he was going to give me drugs and everything, and I just said, no. I have enough knowledge in herbs. I have enough knowledge in healing. I have the ability to heal myself. And when I made this decision, I turned it around. I used my will. I became young, and I said, I'm going to heal this. And I took all the necessary herbs, and I put the young energy there to heal it. And the next morning, John looked in my eyes, and the cloudiness, it's like a cloudiness that starts to develop on the lens, got smaller. And then the next day it was smaller and smaller and smaller. But I can remember how strongly I used my will. And I just got in there and I said, I'm healing this. I don't accept it. I'm healing it right now. And I think that's what you have to do. If you have something seriously wrong with you, you can't just sit back and keep receiving the fact that you have it.
It's not a matter of resisting it. And so there's a difference between resisting it and choosing to say,
I'm going to heal it. I'm making a decision. I'm healing this now.
That's not resistance.
No. It's not denying it. It's not saying, no, I didn't get the parasite. It's not that. No, I knew I had the parasite. I knew the effects of this parasite, what could happen to me. But yet I turned it around in the sense that I used my will to reverse this. Any questions on this?
Okay. So here's where you're seeing the end from the beginning. Here's where you're not focusing on the outer to the point where you're identifying with it, where you'll be stuck with it.
Exactly.
That you're seeing the fact that you can heal yourself in this area, and that you're seeing the end from the beginning, sort of thing. Do you want to talk about that?
That's very, very true. I did see the fact that when my eyes were healed, and they were completely normal. I did see that. I'm glad you reminded me of that, Brooke. I did see that. Yes. Lil says, were you visualizing the outcome? I wouldn't. I guess you could use the word visualizing. I would use more of the word creating or visualizing. Okay, creating, knowing, faith, having faith.
No attachment to the outcome, because there's no question as to what the outcome will be. There's no emotional attachment. No emotional attachment. It's just there's no doubt what the outcome will be.
The reason I stopped with the word visualize was because I remember I used my will very strongly. And sometimes you can visualize something, but if you don't put the will there, I don't know if you can create it. I would say it was a little stronger than just visualizing. Any other questions on this?
One thing that Anita said there is she made this statement that it was an exercise of will and desire. And in my experience, a lot of people in this day and age have some serious glitches on the whole concept of desire, because there are a lot of so-called spiritual teachings that are promulgated in this day and age that put forth the false concept that it's necessary for us to extinguish all desire. And so desire has become kind of a dirty word in this day and age. Yet if you read the teachings of the Ascended Masters, if you read the Saint Germain information, for example, it's made quite clear that nothing is brought into creation without desire. There was always an aspect of desire in terms of anything that's brought into creation. And for many people, this seems to be a real contradiction, because we're taught on the one hand that if we have a desire, we have a resistance, and therefore we end up creating exactly what we're resisting. And yet on the other hand, if we don't have a desire to heal a certain thing, how are we possibly going to bother to do anything about it? So the thing to realize, and this is what John has gotten into, and I think it's in Book 1, is that when you look at desire, there is a concept which John terms desireless desire. Desireless desire, which is where one can have a desire without attachment. It's what you're doing when you put something on your list. You have a desire to bring about a certain thing into manifestation, but you're not attached to it having to be that way. And the desires that you are deliberately constructing are desires that will be evolutionary in nature. They are desires that lead to karmic completion, rather than simply the amassment or the accrual of more karma. In Anita's case here, she was able to see very clearly that there was no problem with healing the eye. Was it one eye? Yeah, there was no problem healing the eye there. So she simply enacted the desire to heal that eye without any attachment to the outcome. In this instance, her desire is then perfectly appropriate, perfectly in accordance with the law of right action, and so she sets her course. See, the thing is, most people look at the outer, so they would say that, well, it heals up because of what you do. It heals up because you did the herbs, or because you put this in the eye or that in the eye, and that's only a small part of the picture. What Anita did first is she made the determination in her own mind that she was going to heal that eye. And no doubt in her mind, she's going to heal that eye. And once she's got that picture already constructed in her mind without any attachment, it's then a very simple matter to do the physical mechanics, and boom, in a couple of days, things come right there.
I'm getting personal now, all right? Some of us have some pretty severe illnesses and problems, where if we apply the correct principle or law, this can be reversed in a twinkling of an eye. Let me try to illustrate that if I have a large boil on my knee, which is giving me pain all the time, is that going to attract my attention? Of course. We're all in that boat, so I have a large boil on my knee. Now that large boil on my knee puts us then, if it attracts our attention, it puts us into seeing is believing. And therefore, we create in our mind, by observing the boil on our knee, that we have a boil on our knee. There's no question about that. We have a boil on our knee. just like we have a sore on our toe or a cancer in our breast. You with me? And there's no question, because that's what we see. So we have a problem with the lump in our breast that's sore. The pain, our attention is trapped in looking at the sore and the pain and the lump in the breast, and we look at that thing, which is seeing is believing. And we're trapped into looking at that because that's where our attention lies. Switch it around. Believing is seeing. And you see and hold in your mind without resistance, where you're not expecting an outcome or where you're not attached to the outcome, but you know that the outcome is going to be as it is because you see nothing but perfection in that area where you have the boil on the knee or the sore toe or the cancer of the breast. And you see nothing but perfection. Now this is where you have pure visualization, if you want to look at it that way. Now as soon as you have a total focus without giving in to the seeing is believing, to where you focus again with resistance on the boil on the knee type of thing, but you see that knee as perfect, the cells of that knee begin to form through the exercise of will and through the exercise of desire to see nothing but perfection, nothing less than perfection. And that's where the entire focus of the mind is in. Now here's where you focus so heavily on that it actually manifests in your space. Now that can be anything, not just a boil on the knee, but it can be anything that you have a, shall I use the word, a righteous desire for, where you know that this is for a constructive purpose, to be of service to your fellow man, where you need this and you need this and you need this. You put your will out and put your attention out, and you'll have exactly what you're manifesting in your mind. But you have to have it without any doubt whatsoever, not looking on what is, but looking on what is being manifested, which is believing is seeing. And you see that end result as if it has already happened. You see that end result as if it has already happened, and suddenly that body will heal. Now let's talk about this whole thing relative to something a little bit interesting. Just like taking a short toe and manufacturing a large toe out of it and back and forth. Doug, would you talk about Michael?
There was a... were you there that evening, Jim, with Michael Oliver and his toe? Do you remember that?
We're doing parlor games, Jim.
Night school. So a fellow by the name of Michael Oliver that Jim is acquainted with, and Maggie knows as well. He had this one, was it his third toe? Third toe was short. You know, it was shorter than the toes on either side of it. Quite short, like sort of underdeveloped, just that one toe. And what John, if I remember correctly, you want to go into the specifics of what you were doing, or? Okay. If I remember correctly, it's been about 10 years. I guess it's been just 10 years. Michael was taught to perceive the energy pattern that dictated the structure of physical matter. He was, John basically helped him to look and see, or told him what to look for, so that he was able to see the actual energy pattern that was there, that was, basically in the same space as the physical body. And in particular, there were like these little golden balls there. Michael was then basically just instructed to perceive the energy pattern in the area of the toe, and with his mind, move the little balls. move the little golden balls. As he did this, what everyone else could see quite clearly was his toe grew. And he could move the balls, and the toe would get longer, and he could move them back, and the toe would get shorter. And he was able to, the physical matter was able to quite rapidly go back and forth just through the activity of the mind. This, John's been looking at this, has been teaching this principle of seeing is believing, which is how most people go about their life, which is totally bass-ackwards, as opposed to the more true concept that believing is seeing. What most of us don't understand is that what we see in the physical universe is an outer manifestation of that which we already believe. In other words, the effect that we're experiencing right now is the direct result of a cause that has been set in motion by ourselves at some point in the past. So what we're experiencing now, what we're seeing right now, is the direct result of something that we already believe. Hence, believing is seeing. Now, the thing to realize is, most of us, when we... What we're physically experiencing now, what we're seeing right now, is the direct result of what we already believe to be true. We believe the world to be a certain way, hence we see it that exact way. The glitch, and the reason we don't understand this on a practical basis, is very, very simple. As we see the experiences of life unfold before us on the outer, how do we deal with them? How do we respond to them most of the time? We resist them. In other words, we receive them with an attitude of less than love. By resisting that which we see, what happens to our attention? It becomes trapped or fixated on what we see. It becomes trapped or fixated upon the outer. As a result of this, we lose sight of the inner essence. We lose sight of the underlying belief systems that have constructed the outer reality. So that now, as we see something, as we observe the outer, our attention is so trapped upon that outer by our own resistance that we're no longer aware of the fact that what we're seeing is what we already pretty much believe. And to complicate it even further, as we're seeing these things, in our own mind, we are constructing our belief systems on the basis of what we see. And we're perfectly justified in believing what we believe because it appears to be in perfect accordance with what we're seeing. Right? Hence, seeing is believing. Well, of course what we see is in perfect accordance with our belief systems. That's why we see it in the first place. So you've kind of gone from believing to seeing, and then there's this sort of step of thinking that you're getting your belief systems back from what you see. The shorthand version of that is, see, I told me so. See, I told me so.
Now, Doug, take that same concept that you just said and apply that to relationships between a man and a wife.
Each one of us sees through a glass darkly. Each one of us is going to see the universe the way we believe it to be. So, for example, if a man has a particular belief system about life or about women, he is going to, on the one hand, where this will be reactive, there'll be a pattern of resistance there. On the one hand, he is going to tend to draw into his space a woman that will fit that belief system. So, for example, if he believes that women are critical, and if he has a lot of resistance to being criticized, then he is going to draw into his space a woman that will do a very, very good job of criticizing him. Because as a result of his, you put out that energy into the universe, that's what you'll attract to yourself. If he resists that criticism as he receives it, And if he allows his attention to be focused or fixated upon that criticism, then he's going to appear to derive a certain belief system from that. And he's going to totally miss the boat because he's not going to see that what he's getting right now, what he's seeing right now, is exactly what he already believed to be true. Now, on the other hand, the woman is in the same position. She's going to believe certain things based on prior experiences, based on genetic programming, which we call the constitutional man, based on past experiences on a soul level, which we'll call the natural man. You know, throw a few entities into the pot and simmer for a couple of hours, and you've got a wonderful recipe for confusion. So what we're going to see basically in our relationships or in any area of life is what we already believe. Since that belief is already rooted in resistance, we're not going to see it clearly. We're going to simply resist it again and again in most cases. Now, what's the way out of this whole situation? Non-resistance is the beginning of the law. John was speaking during the break about people being yin, where this is a very, very important concept, but it's not enough. It's not enough. We have on the one hand the concept of being yin, or lovingly and willingly enduring all things. This is being very, very yin. This is where we're able to receive the experiences of life with non-resistance. This is being yin. It's the beginning of the law. It's the first half. So, for example, if the man is applying this law, he can receive the shall we say, the glitches in his mate with non-resistance. He can experience those things without the resistance, which is lovingly and willingly enduring all things. Or the woman can do the same thing. She can receive the glitches in her mate with non-resistance, with love. But again, neither of these things are enough because they're just the start of the law. They're being yin. If we wish to actually have a more transformative effect upon the universe around us, we need to simultaneously become very, very yang. We need to basically have the ability to quite aggressively bring about change in the universe. I mean, this is what Anita did when she decided she was going to heal her eyes, right? I mean, Anita made the statement,
I can do it. I mean, I can heal myself.
That's not being yin, folks. That's being yang, as Anita quite accurately said earlier. She could sit there all day and be very, very yin and say, well, it's okay that my eyes are, covered with this parasite. She could work forever and a day at non-resistance, which would be very, very yin, but that's still not going to heal her eyes. It's a start, but it's only the start. She has to be yin in the sense of being non-resistant to the experience, but she also has to simultaneously be yang and actually work at changing the existing inertia. In other words, put forth a yang creative effort to overcome the existing inertia. It's not enough to just go half of the law. Now, on the other hand, if Anita had been very, very yang about it, but not also yin, it also wouldn't have worked. Like, in other words, if Anita had said, I'm going to heal my eye, and was very yang about it, but had not first been very yin where she was willing for it to be the way it was, then she also would have gotten nowhere. So, I mean, the yin doesn't really work very well without the yang, and the yang doesn't work very well without the yin. We have to be able to do both. And you look around the room where we have, as Anita and John have pointed out, we have many, many people here with some fairly serious physical illnesses. It's like, on the one hand, you can lovingly and willingly accept the fact that you have what you have, and that's a great start. But on the other hand, what about changing things? What about overcoming things? What about being yang simultaneously? Now, Maggie was speaking about this a little bit yesterday when she was talking about relationships. And she was talking about, we've got that, that time scale of BC, before cranial, and so forth. So do you want to talk a little bit about the difference between lovingly and willingly enduring all things and being very, very yin versus also taking aggressive action to change one's situation?
while Maggie's coming up, I just want to say the words, I can heal myself. Just by making that statement there, you're changing things around right there. Because you're affirming there that you can do it. I am healed. See, these statements, just by the people here that are struggling with things, have you ever thought this? Have you ever made these statements? I am healed. I can heal myself.
Let's look at this again. I am healed. Now you might say, well, I'm not healed. It's obvious that I have a huge boil on my knee. Okay? You might say, well, I'm not healed. I got a problem here. How can I lie to myself by saying I'm healed when I'm not healed? That's a lie. Well, where is the lie? The lie is that there is a resisted condition which brought about the boil in the first place. That's where the lie is. So, therefore, bottom line, you look at something as if it has already happened. Now, don't go around and tell everybody what you're doing until after it's done. Because the German philosopher Goethe said, well, great things are done in secret. So don't go around saying, I'm healed, I'm healed, I'm healed, I'm healed. Let the whole world know it, because they'll invalidate you real quick and say, how can you say I'm healed or you're healed when you still have that big boil on your knee? But that's the thought that you hold there, unyielding. I am healed. And you see that body as perfect. And then the body slowly maneuvers itself around to that perfection that you're holding there by sheer force of will and desire. Well, what you're doing is believing becomes what you see. All you're doing is creating a thought, holding it in your mind, and letting it manifest out in the environment. You're not, shall we say, buying into the fact that you're going to have a boil on the knee the rest of your life. Come up here, Tom. Okay, let's get down to the bottom of this so that we can understand it, because a lot of people saying, well, that's not true. When the truth is instead of seeing is believing, the truth is believing is seeing, and that's what we want to focus our attention on.
Okay, now what? Well, then, like I said over there, is when you are accepting it, like a lot of us said, hey, I'm accepting, but I'm going to overcome it. We are already perfectionists, what you're trying to say, and by keeping that way, we're validating a lie by saying that.
You did this with your leg. You remember when you got up and you said the doctors told you that you were going to have to be in a wheelchair or something? Okay. What did you say?
I said, I'll never accept it.
I'll never accept it. Okay? And what did you create?
I'm not in a wheelchair.
Exactly. Exactly.
I said they wanted to cut off, and they're still trying to. Oh. Yeah, I told Doug this. When I crushed my leg, it was really severe. It was only like a couple little strips of skin that were hanging on to it like that. And I was up in Alaska, and they don't have any doctors or hospitals on the island I was on. Yeah, just about. And so I made my brother go with me when they finally got a plane that was big enough to get me on there, because I'd been lifting weights and working in the woods, so I was a little bit bigger. And so I wasn't fat, though, man. I was lean. And with the stretcher and everything, it was really a mess. Like I say, my leg flopped over, and that severed all the nerves and everything when the bones went through it like that, which is a real fun thing to go through. And so I took my brother, and I said, you're coming with me. And my brother at that time was, he was a little bit bigger, too, than he is now, because he's eating well up there. And he looked like a bear. He had a big beard and long hair. And so we went into the operating room, and I said, look, you're staying here with me. I said, if anybody comes in here with a knife, I said, you take him out right now. I said, I'm not going to let this thing be taken off, because that's all they were talking about. They were saying, hey, he's going to lose this and everything else. And so they wanted to put me under, and I said, no. I said, I'm not going under. I'm staying awake. And they said, well, you can't tolerate the pain. And I said, well, sure I can. And so they grabbed my foot and just showed me that I couldn't. Actually, I could tolerate it, but I moved around a lot. That's the best way of putting it. So they had to, they gave me a couple of shots, and I don't take well to drugs. I don't like drugs at all. So I fought that off and stayed conscious and everything. So they gave me a spinal block, which I didn't really care for. But again, I had my brother right there, and I wouldn't let him leave the room. And I told him, I said, if they come in with a knife or anything, you and I are fighting. I said, they're not taking this thing off. And so they got real mad at me, and then I came down with gangrene, and they promised me my leg would be just fine, no fingerprints in the bones or something like that. And then they had to re-break it, and when they re-broke it, I almost died on the table then, because that was like about Gesundheit. That was about 20-some-odd days after I had broken and was in a cast like that, and I kept on complaining to this doctor. I said, something's wrong with my leg. Something's wrong. I mean, I was bled from the hip on down. And he said, nothing's wrong with it. So when I came back down to California, they said, are you running a fever? I said, yeah, but I always run a fever. So they took me into the doctor's office, let me wait around. I was almost going into shock waiting around. And so they split the cast open, and I started to sit up. And as soon as I sat up, the doctor just knocked me back down. My mom, I said, look on her face. And I just went, uh-oh. And I had gangrene all up and down my leg. And so they gave me just dumped betadine solution over it and stuff like that, and took me to the hospital and said, we're going to have to re-break your leg because it wasn't done right. And I said, well, I thought so. And so they gave me a shot of Damarol. And again, I was sitting there talking to my mom, who was a nurse, and I was going, this isn't working. And she's going, well, quit resisting it. Just go into it. And so it's not working. 3 hours after they give me a shot, doctor comes in, takes an orderly, places him next to me, and takes my leg this way and breaks it around him. And I came up swinging at him, and I hit the orderly and knocked him, and swung at the doctor, and he couldn't understand why I was so upset. And so he did the old guilt trip on me. Well, I don't know what you're complaining about. You shouldn't be feeling a thing. So I said, fine. This is where the masculine part gets in. I said, fine. Go ahead. Do what you want to do. I won't say a word. So I just laid back on the table, and it just kept feeling like electricity was going through me, and I just started to drift off. And something told me to open my eyes, and I saw my mom looking down at me. And I went, kind of like, see ya. And I heard her going, nurse, nurse, and they put a blood pressure cuff on me. And I heard them say, doctor, 60/20. And they hit me with an IV, and I was really ticked off over that because it brought me right back, and I was ready just to die and get out of there and show him that he was a jerk. And that's my way of looking at it. So I'll show you, I'll die. That was it. That was exactly it. That's almost exactly the same word pattern was, I'll show you, I'll die. And I had no problem with it whatsoever. I mean, he was killing me. And so I just laid there, and I thought I was gone. And then they missed on the first shot with the IV, and blood goes and squirts up like that. So I figured I was gone. And that's one of the worst things in the world, when you figure you're drifting out of there and you're gone, and all of a sudden that coldness goes through your veins, and it brings you back. Whether you want to go or not, it brings you back. And so that's been 22 years ago. And hey, I'm still walking around. Maybe not too good, but I'm still walking around.
Wait a minute. Wait. Tom, wait. Okay, did you use your will to keep your leg on your body? Okay? Did you see your leg on your body?
Yes.
Okay. Was it totally on your body
Yes.
at the time of the accident?
No. Kind of all over the place. I mean, it was flopped off to the side and everything, and their bones were crisscrossed up like that. And I remember thinking how pretty the bones were and how pretty the red blood was.
Okay, I think I've made my point here. Do you see it? Yeah.
It's interesting. Here you have a guy that makes the firm decision that he's not going to lose his leg, but he's asking Anita if he can go now.
You don't need my permission. Thank you.
There's a couple examples that I can think of that incorporate this concept that we're talking about. And let's see, one of them was when after I had an ectopic pregnancy and I wanted to get pregnant again, I really had a strong desire to have a child, and I felt I needed to do that to complete my karma, really. And so I had this desire, and I said to myself, I said, it's okay, intellectually, it's okay if I don't get pregnant, but I really want this child. And so I wouldn't get pregnant. I wouldn't get pregnant 1 month, and I'd be real upset. I thought it had been okay, but as soon as my cycle came, I'd be like real sad because the desire was really there, and I hadn't really let go of it fully. So next month I'd be like, well, it's okay. I really don't need to. And then as soon as my cycle came, I'd be like, oh, tears. I'm not pregnant. So, we think we're doing it, and we find out we're not. So what we do is we just keep doing it and keep practicing until we get it right. You have to understand that when I had ectopic pregnancy, I lost one of my tubes, so I just had one to work with, and so it made it maybe a little more difficult. Finally, it was a year later, and I said, all right, I've been putting my life on hold, doing everything, because I might get pregnant, I might have another child, I better not do that, although I was saying I was letting go, okay? So I finally said, if I meant to have a child, then I'll have one. Maybe it would be better to wait. I want a child, I'm willing to have a child. I signed up to take a course, I got involved with the community theater, started doing volunteer work, and next month I got pregnant. Because then I was truly released it. I was using my will, but I was also, I was just lovingly and willingly experiencing whatever it was. But I also had the desire out there, I want to get pregnant, and it happened.
Anything else?
Lots of diapers. Well, the lesson in it for me was that we think we're doing it, but we're not. We think we're letting go, but we're not. And the only thing that we can really do is to just keep practicing it and just keep looking at it. Each month I had to look at another layer of my resistance, another aspect that I wasn't willing to let go of. I had to have the baby now because I wanted them to be spaced this many years apart, and if I waited, I'd be too old later on. I just had to let go of each of those things. It took me, I guess 12 months, so maybe I went through 12 layers. But each month I looked at a different layer until finally I reached the point where I truly was willing.
Hey, Doug, what's the bottom line?
Well, I think what we've been looking at all along here is being able to be yin and yang simultaneously. On the one hand, being yin is the beginning of the law, where we can lovingly and willingly experience all things and be unattached to outcomes, be unattached to things having to be a certain way. On the other hand, we also have to be yang, because otherwise we're like a ship without a rudder. We're not setting a course in our life. We're not really going any direction. I mean, if you never exercise any will and desire whatsoever, you're just like a leaf getting driven around by the wind. You have no direction whatsoever in life. In the example that Mag is using here with the ectopic and then wanting to get pregnant again and afterwards, she set a direction in her life. So she was being very, very yang, but the glitch was she wasn't really fully being yin yet. and it took a few months for her to get over the resistance and to work through the various attachments. Once she'd done that, and then she still has that will and desire, she still has that direction in her life, then there wasn't really anything standing in her way from actually having the experience that she wanted to have, which was another child there. So the thing is, if you want to encompass the law, you have to have both aspects. You have to have the yin aspect and the yang aspect. You have to make the choice to go in a particular direction, but you have to be able to do it in such a way that you're unattached to the outcomes.
Now, how do you do that? On that last statement, Doug, how do you do that?
I think you do the best that you can.
Go back and repeat the statement you made.
Okay. On the one hand, you work on being yin, which is to lovingly and willingly experience all the experiences of life, which is to basically not have attachments, not be fixated on things, not have resistances to where things have to be a certain way, they have to be this way or they can't be this way. You overcome those resistances to where you're willing to experience whatever, which is being very, very yin.
Underscore that word.
You're willing to experience things, whatever. You're willing for whatever to happen. Totally unattached to outcomes, totally unattached to things either having to be this way or absolutely it's not okay for them to be that way. You're free from that sort of attitude, and that's yin. But the other half of the law is you also have to be yang, which is where you make a determination to bring about a certain event. And to be able to do that without simultaneously falling back into attachment. How to do it, I think it's mainly a matter of practice.
You assume the virtue. You assume the virtue that you're willing to do it, and then you deal with the issues that come up as they come up. You deal with the resistances.
Brooke to the rescue.
First thing you do, you've got to have faith. You've got to have faith. And then you're able to assume the virtue. But the only way you're really going to do it is by working on your list. Because that's going to bring about the necessary experiences in order for you to gain knowledge and truly understand it.
What's that for knowledge?
Well, then you get an understanding of temperance, which is understanding that there are higher and lower laws, and working with your list and doing the activities necessary for the direction that you want to go in, learning the difference between higher and lower laws and how to implement them in your life. And then you recognize that you're going to have patience to wait for things to come about, but also, having faith and assuming the virtue that it's going to happen. Putting it out there, and you diligently work at this, and then you work at. I guess you follow. Look at book 1. Just read book 1, the 10 Steps of Perfection. That'll help you get through the brotherly kindness and the charity and and all the rest of the steps.
That's not bad.
Is that how you do it, John?
Yeah, you passed that one.
I want to know to what extent our feelings of being undeserving of a change, what part do those feelings play?
How many people feel undeserving? How many people really feel undeserving? May I see a show of hands? How many people feel undeserving? Okay. I don't deserve. What's the word, Jenny?
What's the word?
What's the word? What's the phrase?
I don't deserve this. I'm not good enough.
Oh. How many people feel the word pattern, I'm not good enough? Is that a fairly unanimous one? I'm just not good enough? I don't deserve it?
I never met a word pattern I didn't like.
Are you done for now? Are you done for now? Where'd she go? Are you done for now? Okay. Yeah. Okay, Jenny, the energy here is polarizing very, very rapidly, and I would like for all of us to partake in a group activity which may be quite interesting for everybody. And I want you to tune up your 6 senses, and we're going to explore together a word pattern. That's not going to hurt everybody. It's not going to hurt for everybody to participate in it. Now, I'll show you what we're going to be doing. And Jenny, what's the word pattern? I'm not good enough. Go have a seat, dear. Okay, now, I want you to hold the body perfectly still, get your feet firmly planted on the ground, and I want you to very carefully observe what happens in your own body. And we're going to go into a group program wherein with 100 people here, and if we can blow out one magnificent word pattern, it'll have a tremendous impact if we do it all together worldwide, eh? Now, what's the word pattern, Jenny? I'm not good enough. Boy, what a judgment. And if we feel that, I'm not good enough, then my golly, will we ever want or feel like we deserve any blessing for any reason? No. And if we get whipped around pretty good, we probably deserve it, don't we? What do you feel, Tom? Okay, I'm good enough. You went through that. But let's just, for our own purposes, know that we're good enough on one hand. And I want you all to know that, but you may not be convinced of it because you're probably wallowing around in this word pattern, I'm not good enough. Now, I want you to plant your feet firmly on the ground, hold the hands still in front of you, and if you start burning away, hold that body perfectly still until that burning is done, and just think the word pattern. Actually, let's say it out loud with all the memories attached to it. I'm not good enough. Are you ready now? Okay, I'm not good enough. Say it. I'm not good enough. Okay, again. I'm not good enough. Feel it through the body. I'm not good enough, knowing that I am good enough, because we want to know that as an umbrella to encompass the I'm not good enough. Okay, again, I'm not good enough. Feel all the times that you're invalidated by mother, by father, by the brothers and sisters, teachers, ministers. I'm not good enough. Say it again. Okay, intensify it. I'm not good enough. Okay, again, I'm not good enough. Okay, feel it all the way through your body. Feel all the times you felt that way. I'm not good enough. Feel it like you mean it. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. Feel it. Okay, feel it. All the times you felt it. Feel the emotions involved. Thought, feeling, and spoken word. Get the emotions. I'm not good enough. Come on, feel it. Feel it like you mean it. All the times I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. Feel that emotion. Feel the degradation. I'm not good enough. Feel, wallow in it really good and enjoy that wallowing. I'm not good enough. Come on, more. There. Feel that? Again, I'm not good enough. Again, I'm not good enough. Intensify the emotion with it. Come on. Come on, feel it. Feel it. Insist that you let people know I'm not good enough. Have fun with it. I'm not good enough. Intensify it. Have fun with it now. Okay, what's happening? You're feeling the emotion? You're feeling the emotion? How many are feeling vibration? May I see a show of hands? How many are feeling vibration down through the body? Now we're transmuting that now, about half of you. About half of you. Are you taking it and knowing that you are good enough while you're feeling I'm not good enough? Okay. Now let's blow that I'm not good enough out of there so you know that you're good enough. Let's go for it. Blow it out of there. I'm just not good enough. Feel it. Feel it. Like you mean it. Come on, Jenny, feel it. I'm just not good enough. Let that emotion out of there. It's been stuffed for years. I'm not good enough. Come on. Come on, feel it. Insist on it. Who are you talking to? Mother, dad? Who are you talking to? You're just not good enough. Feel it. Okay? Enjoy it and just smile and laugh through it and just blow it right out of there. I'm just not good enough. Feel the joy. I'm just not good enough. And realize that this is your creation. I'm just not good enough. I'm not good enough. Have fun with it. Feel that heartache in there in some of the people. Now just continue right on. Feel that heartache. And look at the word pattern. I'm not good enough. And look how you've done it to yourself. You did a beautiful job. It couldn't be any better. Just the word pattern. I'm just not good enough. I did it, look at the word pattern. I did it good. It couldn't be any better. Look how much pain it's given me through this life. I'm just not good enough. Feel it. Y'all feel that? Okay, how many vibrators do we have? Feel the vibration through the body. Raise your hands if you're vibrating. Okay. Now, I want you to look now at word patterns that would be behind that word pattern. I'm not good enough. Look at the word patterns. It's going to be a variety of things. Now just feel it. Just say to yourself, I'm not good enough, and find out where that goes. How many people are burning? May I see a show of hands? Get your hands high if you're burning through the body. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Get them high. Keep them up there for a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just on that one word pattern, 9 people, and I'm not good enough. That's 10. Sorry, pardon me, 10 people. Now that's a pretty good group. Now just feel that burning down through the body on the word pattern, I'm not good enough. And then realize that you are good enough. Just feel it. Now just make sure you affirm that in your mind, I am good enough. And look how you've bought this bill of goods, I'm not good enough. You've done a beautiful job of buying that. Okay? Feel it. Now some of you are going to be in a little healing crisis over this because you've got that thing opened up and you know what to do. You know how to work through that. I'm not good enough. Now feel it. For about the 12 of you, just keep on the burning. Just keep on enjoying that. And the other 12 of you that are vibrating, just keep on enjoying that. And the words of that on that, I'm not good enough, is where we invalidate ourselves as a God in embryo. I'm just not good enough. Feel it and just enjoy it. Just realize we did it really good. by denying the God within us. I am not. Look at the word pattern. That's a powerful denial of the God within us instead of just using the word I am. I am good enough. Rather than the denial of the God that we're rightfully have within each one of us, which is I am not good enough. That's the denial. I am good enough. Now put that in a computer and just sit there and just realize I'm good enough. Say it now. Now we might have to be a little linear on this, okay, because we can't get both of them at the same time, so I don't want to leave you in the depths of that linear I'm not good enough. Now let's go. I'm good enough. Say it again. I'm good enough. Tom, come on. I'm good enough. I'm really good enough. I'm good enough. You feel it? Now watch the cold winds blow. I'm good enough. Feel it? Feel them going? I'm good enough. I am good enough. Feel it. Okay. How do you feel, folks? Good enough. Okay, just feel good enough. Now, is anybody left in a terrible burn? Who's burning? Okay, now just take that and know that we've got a good one. Write that down in your little journal. I'm not good enough. And we'll follow that up in point holding. And sometimes we look for these things and go for them. Okay, we're not leaving you all hung up, but look at the emotions involved and enjoy those, and know that those emotions have blocked off our feelings for a long time when we are good enough. Now that's one area. Jenny, how are you feeling now? You're the one responsible for all this. Hey? You're dizzy. You feel did you get the vibration? But you got the dizziness. Okay. Now sometimes you just get a lot of dizziness and feeling there because of the energy is so heavy. Pardon me? Okay, a little decree. Who wants to do it? Who wants to take that responsibility? Duncan, come up here, sir. Did anybody feel that cold wind that went through there on that? I'm not good enough? How many felt the cold wind? A lot of you did. Okay, we want to get that out of here. Duncan, you're in charge, sir.
Well, I'm still a little bit shaky because I've been told so many times since I was so high that I just wasn't bloody good. But I think I know now. I know I'm good enough, damn it. I know I'm good enough. Right. In the name of Jesus Christ, Saint Germain, and all the ascended masters, I demand that this entity, not good enough, leave this room and go straight to the light of God forever. And amen to that. And all the other entities, in the name of Jesus Christ, Saint Germain, and all the ascended masters, I demand that all entities within this room go straight to the light of God. And thank you for being here, because you've taught us a lot.
Okay, thank you, sir. Did you feel the cold winds going? Those were very, very real. And it's just this, there's a whole, feel the cleaning. Hey, listen, that's different. Just almost overnight, all that ectoplasm stuff is just going. It's just kind of sticky a while ago. It's gone. Okay, that's good. This stuff is heavy. But this is the kind of stuff, frankly, you don't do with a person who's coming into your office for the first time. But it's something that you can work on in a group and blow out a certain word pattern, and you affect a whole area by that word pattern being released, and you can just watch the newspapers and watch people change. The last couple of years, how many of you have seen the change in art in Australia and New Zealand? Have you seen what's happening to the art? What's happening to the art? Beautiful, vibrant colors. What happened to the old drab watercolors? You look at it, it looks like a faded wash rag. You're getting colors, and that is a reflection of the personalities of the people. There's great changes here. Have you noticed in politics now what people are doing? Have you noticed? What are they doing? Okay. The politicians are getting run around by the people because the people are becoming very aware, very communicative, and very social active. And things are happening now that are for the good of Australia, good of New Zealand, and so on, and other countries nearby. Worldwide it's happening. So people just are not sitting back and just taking everything and swallowing like a pill anymore. It's a very healthy attitude, my friends. Beautiful houses, aren't they? Have you noticed the colors that people are wearing now? What colors are they wearing? All kinds of pastels and beautiful colors. No longer just that black and white. It's interesting. And red. Thank you.
Mag has just pointed out that there's still a few people out there, just as she's overheard walking around there, that don't know what the list is yet. How many don't know what the list is? Raise your hands if you don't know what the list is.
Take about 2 hours and read Chapter 11 of Book 1 of the Logic and Sequence series. It has all the details in there if you read it carefully. Read it very carefully, and not just so you can say you read it. Been there and done that. We're not interested in that. We're interested in comprehension. But I think that's something that you should read. Duncan. Duncan, over here, sir.
As far as the list is concerned, please don't be like me. I know that I should do it, but I haven't had the guts to do it yet. So get in there and do it. And I'm going to... Pardon me. I'm going to have to do it, so why shouldn't you?
Thank you, Duncan. Okay, you're probably wondering when we're going to get into iridology. I want you to understand something. We're into it, and we're cleaning up all the little loose ends that instructors need to know to work with their students and work with the people that they might be able to lead them and guide them for their highest and best good. And we're going to get into the iridology full swing after we have a bite to eat. Take a break now until about 7. Okay, we have discussed this one sufficiently. Next slide. There we are. Now, bottom line, I want to show you a problem area that you'll need to look at carefully. Now, you might say, well, how about all of these little spots here? Yes, every one of those needs some attention. But right in this area, you have yourself an eye on which side? The left side is you're looking at it, or the right side? As you're looking at it, it's the left side. But which eye is it? The right eye. Okay. Now, right in here, from about 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, right in here, you have a problem in the cecum area. Now, when you have, do you all know where the cecum is? Do you have any problem there at all? Okay, Doug, let's flip that up here real quick. Lights. That's good. Okay, can we get that in? Okay, the cecum basically is right here between roughly 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and this is the area where you're going to have your appendix. Now, bottom line, any surgeon will tell you that the appendix can be found anywhere from the beginning to the end of the cecum. And it's there's the cecum, well, the appendix will not be found just on one location, but it can be found anywhere along the cecum from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And that appendix is this little thing coming right down here. Now, basically, what I want to show you, Anita, did you have that? This is good? No problem. Yeah, I don't think we need it. Okay. This is the pupil. This is the autonomic nerve reef. This is the pupil here. This is the autonomic nerve wreath here. Now what I'm going to do is to show you what things look like under very high magnification. And what you're going to have in the cecum area will be a large number of fibers which originate from the pupillary ruff, which is just outside of the pupil, and it goes up and touches and goes back just like a daisy. But you have literally hundreds of these little things. Is that coming out to you? Okay? This is what it looks like under high magnification. And so what you've got these little fibers moving outward and back. And so it's just, there's one continual flow of one fiber. The fiber originates at the pupillary ruff, comes out to the autonomic nerve wreath, and then back again to the pupillary ruff. Now, from the pupillary ruff coming out, it's actually coming from the limbus. The limbus is the outside or the circumference of the iris. It comes in, touches the autonomic nerve wreath, like so, and you have hundreds of these. And right along in here you have little ganglia or gatherings of nerve fibers, which has to do with the autonomic nervous system, or what we call the ANS. And this includes the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system all the way along around what we call the ANW, or the autonomic nerve wreath. You got that? Okay, now the fibers move from the limbus in, touch, and come back out. This is the communication system set up from the central nervous system going out to the autonomic nervous system on out to the rest of the body. Now you need to know that particular system. Now let us assume that we have this type of a situation. I'm just going to draw another one here. And you have a very strange here formation of the autonomic nerve wreath. Now right in this area here, you have a very short fiber that goes from the pupillary ruff on over to the autonomic nerve wreath. And another one here, and so on. Right here, where it's very, very short, you have another problem coming in here where that's very, very long comparing it to the rest of the fibers, which would be, for example, like here, you'd have this type of a situation and then this type of a situation. Now, where you have the blockage will be where the fibers here are very, very small, meaning that in that particular part of the body you have a weakness in the organ area pertaining to the central nervous system, which will reflex at what we call a 0-degree reflex on out to the rest of the body. Now this is very important, the 0-degree reflex. Now the 0-degree reflex, if it's in the cecum here, and you got your cecum down in this area, then you're going to have a pigment spot in the area of greatest weakness, because if the body part is weak, then the toxins in the body will settle out in the tissue of greatest weakness, and you will have pigmentation in that area. Case in point, this slide. Jim, can I have that slide back up here, please? Just take that down, if you would, Doug. And right here in this point, see this area right here? Here's where your greatest pigmentation is in the entire Zone 1, Zone 2 area. And here is where the pigmentation moves on out by reflex action, and you have then in the Zone 6, which has to do with the mucoprotein or the lymphatic system, here's where you have a pigmentation spot right here, reflects directly out of the cecum. Now this part of the body will not heal in this particular segment until this part in here heals, because the body heals from the inside out. So for people who have a problem in the cecum, this is the area here that would be very, very important for a colonic irrigation to clean out all the dog biscuits in this area. And then as this part here heals, you'll find that the pigmentation disappears, and then correspondingly by 0-degree reflex, the area down in this area would heal. Any questions? Next slide. Here again you have the cecum area. And this cecum area has to be cleaned out. And this is actually between roughly 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock again. That's sufficient. Next slide. Okay, now bottom line, please take careful notes on this, because there are many iridologists who look very carefully only at the autonomic nerve wreath. Now the autonomic nerve wreath goes right around through here, as Doug has mentioned to you before. But right in this area, do you see how this autonomic nerve wreath goes in like this and comes back out? That is called a stricture. Now where you have a stricture is like an indentation or a dent in the autonomic nerve wreath in toward the pupil, which will be associated with scar tissue, especially in the area of the cecum. So whenever you have a stricture, you always will realize that there's scar tissue. And in a book written on parasitology by Dr. Brown, who is a surgeon, he said he has never found scar tissue anywhere in the intestine where there has been a stricture, except that it has been parasite related. So whenever you find a stricture, this will be parasite related. And the parasites may have been long gone on a good parasite cleansing program, but the scar tissue will still be there. Now, bottom line, you got this? A stricture such as this will always accompany and precede a cancerous condition, because wherever you have a stricture, this area will be the weakened area, which will reflex out to the corresponding 0-degree reflex. So you'll always look carefully at the strictures. Next slide. Okay, again, you got a problem right in here. And this is from the colon, reflexed on out where the pigment is, and that will always be a pigment spot in the area, which will be where there's a lack of nerve supply to that area. And if there's a lack of nerve supply, there will be a lack of circulation, and the toxins in the body will then settle out in the tissue of greatest weakness, causing a gradual degeneration, and you'll find the area that needs the greatest attention right in here. And you just slap your grid over that, and then get about 3 or 4 areas that you feel would be comfortable in that area. Mark them on your sheets and put that as a first priority to work with your body electronics. Okay, next slide. That would be where you'd have an anaerobic condition, lack of oxygen, and a gradual breakdown of tissue. And since it does have a stricture in that area, you have the possibility of a cancer in that area. Okay? Now that's what we'll call it. Here's another area right in here, and that's in the cecum area again. Okay? That's all I wanted to show you, just so you get a good look at it. Next slide. Okay, bottom line. As you're looking at this eye, whenever you see a cigar shape that's very dark like this one, just put down the word cigar shape. According to the German School of Iridology, that will always be accompanied by a cancerous condition. Okay, next slide. Okay, I want to go into this one here with you. Basically, in what we will call the right eye, you will find the small intestine clear over here. Now, let's look at the Jensen chart for a moment. Doug, could we have that other little gadget up here, please? Let's see, is this the one I want? Where's the right? Good. Now, I want you to really catch this, because in the Jensen chart, he puts the duodenum right here. You see where it says DUO. Now, the duodenum is in the upper third, roughly, of the small intestine. Now, if the small intestine is over here and the duodenum is here, I'm going to show you some examples of duodenal ulcers. And you will see the positioning and the shape of it will explain to you that you have the small intestine as a continuation from what you see here all the way around the eye, and in many cases overlapping the colon area. So when you're looking at this area, you are looking at an overlapping series of organs, small and large intestine included. Let's come back here now to the slide. Okay. Slide, please. Okay. Now, right in this area would be the duodenal area, and this person here has what we call duodenal ulcers. Can you see that all right? Take the lights down a bit, considerably. Hey, get in a position where you can see, sir. I can't move out of this one, and Doug's on the other side, and you're going to have to put yourself in a position where you can see, all right? But here's the duodenal ulcer, and this is a small intestine overlaying what we would call the ascending colon, which goes roughly from 7 o'clock up here to about 11 o'clock. Okay? Now, pardon me? Because this is a diagnosed case of duodenal ulcers. Next slide. Now, on this eye, there's so much that needs to be shown here, but bottom line, this is a diagnosed case of duodenal ulcers, and it's right where Jensen says it is, right in this area. Next slide. And right here, now please take close note. Here's a duodenal ulcer. Notice it starts out a short distance away from the pupil and comes out about so far. And you'll find that if you take this distance and swing that on around here, that will be the area in which you find the small intestinal area. And you'll find that consistently on all cases where you have your duodenal ulcer. That's what you see right here. That's a diagnosed duodenal ulcer. Next slide. Now here's another diagnosed duodenal ulcer. Please disregard the other spots right now. We're taking one thing at a time and trying to illustrate that for you. Next slide. Okay, here's another diagnosed case of duodenal ulcers. You have other problems? You sure do, but this is your duodenal ulcer. Next. Okay. This person was born this way, and it's an inherited weakness in this area. And the children have it, and so it's just passed down genetically. We'll put a person on a program, and this sectoral, what they call hemochromia, this sectoral area here will all dissolve away under the program, and it's not fixed forever as you find in your other textbooks on iridology. This changes. Next slide. I just want to pass something by here very quickly with you. This blue ring around here shows an anemia ring. It's a very small ring, but it's a blue color. And when you find a blue ring all the way around the eye, just a blue ring, you know you have an anemia ring, and a lot of chlorophyll will be used to help to solve that particular problem. Again, you've got all your pigmentation down in this area. The black pupillary ruff is evident. Take a look at the zone 1 ring. You've got all kinds of problems that we won't go into in detail. Next slide. Okay, this gentleman has a pancreatic problem right here. And it goes from the duodenal to the pancreas, and not the duodenal to the gallbladder to the liver. But this is a very serious pancreatic problem tied in with the duodenal ulcer. So this position here of the duodenal ulcer can change considerably, but this is tied in directly to a pancreas. Very bad pancreatic problem. Next slide. Okay, please note all the pigmentation spots. One more duodenal ulcer right here. Diagnosed. A lot of reflexes from the colon outward, showing kind of a gradual breakdown in the body. That's enough. This is a bad shape. You got a lot of work to do on this person. Next slide. Okay, please take note. Right in here you have a severe, what we call an outpouching in the autonomic nerve wreath. Now, Doug showed you a while ago, he showed you that if this is pushed in very close to the pupil, it's what they call a spastic colon, or what we call a short, fast gut. But if we have a problem like this right here, this shows definitely a lack of peristaltic action to this portion of the cecum and the ascending colon. And so the food in the cecum area would have a tendency to never move out of here, and you don't have a ballooning out of the cecum, as this would be indicated and is taught by some iridologists. This is not a ballooning out. It shows a lack of nerve supply because we're dealing with a functional position rather than an anatomical position, and this would show you that you have a lack of peristaltic action to this portion of the colon, which would be in the beginning of the ascending colon and the cecum, where they're interconnected. Now, normally, what you'd have in that area also would be an ileocecal valve problem, and you probably have a lot of bloating and burping and so on because of the ileocecal valve interconnection with that particular part of the colon. Okay, any problem here? Yes, sir? It's definitely squaring off. Good observation. Anybody? Next slide. Okay, this lady, when I first took her picture about 1980, when I first met her, I should say, this was orange all the way from here to here. All of this was orange all the way around to here, and she had nothing but burning continually in all of her stomach. Now, after about a year passed by, this is all of the pigmentation left, and in the meantime, all of this gray putty-like material she has already passed what appeared to be thousands of yellow corn, which is your carcinoid tumor, and many, maybe 500 or so of your little fuzzies, which are your cancers in the intestines. And she's still going on that. But she feels much better than she did, but we're certainly not over the problem with by a long shot. Next slide. Okay. Now, you see the white area here. Do you see the white area up through here? Does anybody know what that white indicates? The white indicates irritation. It indicates hyperactivity. It indicates pain. And it indicates diverticulitis. Now, where you find the white, like this, in the autonomic nerve wreath itself, this shows that the lining of the intestine is going to be of the nature where it's very, very painful, where you have a number of little tiny spots. See the black here, black, black, black. You got a number of little black spots here. This is where you have outpouchings in the wall of the colon, wherein these outpouchings are filled with old fecal matter that get infected and remain there until we have a healing crisis on the colon, and then the person passes all kinds of bullets and sometimes things that look like swollen herb capsules or rabbit pellets. It could be any number of those things. But the colon here will heal without the need for drugs and without the need for surgery. Next slide. Yes. A good one? No way. It's not bad, but it's a little bit on the orange side, isn't it? On the pupillary rough in here. Just a little bit there, Jim. Not too bad. But the rest of the body makes up for it. Okay? Again, where you have a lot of the white, right, like so, this is all going to be diverticulitis. And you have a lot of it there. And this is the infections in the diverticulum, which is the name for the outpouching filled with fecalith material. And it's going to be dealt with the program, and all this will heal up, and the person will pass dozens and dozens of these fecaliths. Next slide. Okay, now we're getting up here into the upper part of the ascending colon. And this again will be your diverticulitis. Please take a very close note here. Do you see how this is dented in right here? Or it's dented in right here? And I mentioned before that when you have a dent or an indentation toward the pupil in the autonomic nerve wreath, this will accompany and precede a cancerous condition later on throughout the body. So you got some problems there. Next slide. Pardon me? I didn't hear you. I didn't see the brain tumor. Let's look at it. No, I wouldn't say so. Not yet. Yes? You have a little bright white right here. This is the only place you're going to have diverticulitis. And so you'll have pain in what we would call the hepatic flexure right under the rib cage, right in here. And when the food goes by this portion of the colon, right in here, you're going to have pain in that area. As it heals, the white disappears. These little black holes fill in and disappear entirely. The bright white line turns yellow and eventually goes away. Yes. This here is a reflection from the light. 1980 version. Okay, next slide. Next slide. Good morning. Are we stuck? Lights, please. Yeah. Yes. Not downscale. As it heals, it goes to a darker color. If it goes downscale, yes, it goes to a black. gradually. Does it? We all right? Okay. Lights, please. Now, we talked earlier about the squared off autonomic nerve wreath as being one of the signs, one of the major signs for an impending death in the person. Now, a next thing that you want to look at carefully is where you have the dark from the limbus right here coming in, or from what we call the scurf rim, joining the black coming out from the pupil. And that's another sign of impending death. Now, this person has a very, very black scurf rim. You won't see them like this anymore. At least I don't see them like that anymore. And there has been enough healing with niacin on the for the what we call the cellular level of the body, where morphogenetically the black scurf rims are disappearing for nearly everybody. But you can't see the fibers here. Now, there are a number of people who have had a black scurf rim where you can see the fibers in this area on the outer portion of the iris of the eye, and instead of the fibers being down at a level 7, they're up around maybe 5. And so the black, where you can see the fibers very clearly in the outer portion in zone 7 of the iris of the eye. Okay, basically next, let me show you one little spot. See this little area where the fibers are kind of crooked right here? And see the fiber where it's black inside of a little swollen fiber? You'll always find that as a cancer. Always, right here. And with all the black here, you'll see this. And there's another sign of sure cancer, is where you have a color change. And if you notice the color here, and the color goes through a very rapid change right here, and where you have that color change, that's another sure sign of a cancerous condition in the colon area of the eye. Yeah, everybody got that? Okay, yes, sir. Not really, but up in here you have it. Up here you have it. And so you probably have a lot of problems, but we're not going to talk about the autonomic nerve wreath yet, the double. We'll get to that. Next slide. Next slide. Do we have 2 there? Looks like we have 2 here. Lights, please. Well, you can see it right here. It's where the dark of the scurf rim, or zone 7, moves in and meets the dark coming out from the pupil. That's always a sign of impending death, and that's just as important as the squared off autonomic nerve wreath where you have a death wish. Pardon me? I didn't hear your question. Is the what? No, it's an indication that when you got the black coming in from the cellular level and it meets the black coming out from the central nervous system, that you're going to die when the two meet. Light off for a second, please. This is a good one. This is an old buddy of mine. Now I'm going to show you 2 things. I'm going to show you the white here, and I'm going to show you the white here. And this man has tremendous pain, one across the middle of the transverse colon, and the other one right in toward the middle of it, which would be right here roughly at 1 o'clock. Now this gentleman has colon cancer. He doesn't know it. And he won't do anything but take a lot of medication to kill the pain so he doesn't worry about it. But here you have what is called an autonomic nerve wreath up in here, and then down here you have a double autonomic nerve wreath. The same thing right in this area. You have a little black hole right here surrounded by the white fibers that are swollen. Listen to my words. The white fibers that are swollen, surrounded by this little black hole right in the middle, will always be a cancerous condition. And whenever I find that, you put the person on the full program until he passes a cancer in the colon, which would be about the size of your fist, but which looks like he's got blood vessels hanging out from all corners. And people who pass these, they're just like this whole thing is a huge thing with hands on it. And you've got to get rid of that. And until this clears up, it's going to be a while. Now, I have warned people over and over again where I've seen this in their eyes. They pay no attention to me. In 3 to 5 years, they're dead with colon cancer, and sometimes with their entire colon jerked out, and they still die because it's too late by that time. Next slide. Pardon me? Okay, I can't hear the question clearly. Louis, would you state that, please, one more time? The doubling autonomic nerve wreath appears to be an abnormality, showing a great weakness in that particular area. And whenever I have seen that, I have always found that associated with cancer of the colon in that particular area. That's all I can tell you. Okay? Okay, next, we're here. Please take note. You see, now follow your, when you take and swing your pointer around, you take a look at color. Watch the color. What happens right here? There's a change of color right here. This is always suspect, and here's where you put a person on a maximum program. Now, this particular individual, lights please for a moment. I got to talk to you, and you have to understand what you're dealing with. Could I have this off, please? Thank you. Now, going back to this lady, she took my seminars in Chicago, Illinois. I explained to her what the circumstances were. We put her on roughly a full program, and she was very, very happy because she passed the corn, and then she passed fuzzies, and she passed a few fecaliths. And then, because the color change, what does the color change oftentimes indicate? What did I say? Cancer. And so at this point of time, now listen carefully, at this point of time she passed stuff that looked like the gills of a fish. And she passed a lot of it. And what would come along with this stuff that looked like gills of the fish? Lots of blood. Lots of blood. Now listen to me. Lots of blood. Her family, the moment there was a sign of blood, the family insisted that she go to the hospital. What did the doctors do the moment she got to the hospital? They put her on the drip, and started running a lot of tests to find out what was going on. And they did have samples of this material that she passed, and of course it was cancerous. So they got very, very alarmed. Now, who would like to tell the rest of the story? They took her off the program. In 2 weeks she died. Now, listen to me. They took her off the program. She was in the hospital. In 2 weeks she was dead as a doornail. Now, what happened in that 2-week period? Okay, come up here, Brooke, and explain in detail exactly what took place. Now, you've got to know this, folks. This is very deadly serious. This is one of the most important things that happens because people don't listen, or they listen as long as their comfort zones are not violated. But when they start passing these big cancers and start passing a little bit of blood, they go berserk, they go crazy, they go off the program, and in 2 weeks you've got a serious problem, they're dead.
Then it's all over, yeah. I guess she doesn't have to worry about the supplements after that. What happens is because she's probably just come up scale a little. If you remember the scale of emotions, where at the level of unconsciousness you get to the painful level, which is what level? The hyperactive level of the gonads, unconsciousness being the level of the gonads. And so she's secreting large amounts of what?
Go back, please, Brooke, and be more clear at the beginning. Be very clear at the beginning. Where do they start?
She started off by being fairly unconscious, most probably, as most of us do, and with some point holding, getting the STO points done, getting nerve supply and circulation to that area, and going through a healing crisis, she's enabled to pass some of this corn and fuzzies and scales. At that time, she's coming up at the level of unconsciousness, which relates to the activity of the gonads and ovaries. Thank you. She wouldn't have gonads, of course not. Where she's coming up to the level of pain, which at every level, unconsciousness, apathy, grief, fear, anger, pain, and enthusiasm, at all those 7 levels, they all have a level of pain because there's 7 within 7. And that level of pain is always associated with a hyperactive state or a hyperactive level. So at unconsciousness, you've got a hyperactive level of the ovaries, thank you, Tom, where she's secreting large amounts of estrogens, which do what? Accelerates cell growth, okay?
But it's also used for accelerating healing in the body.
Because everything...
The healing of the body is like using the trophoblastic, what we call trophoblastic material, which is like a placenta tissue, and some people call it placenta tissue, where a person is starting to heal in an area of trauma to the body. This placenta tissue is where you have a big blood supply into the area where there's been an area of trauma where the red blood cells go in, and they learn to be entrained by the energy field in which they find themselves. And as they are entrained, they take upon the nature of the organ area which is being healed. This is what the estrogen helps happen. If you have a cancer anywhere in the body, if you have a cancer, and the blood cells hit that cancer area, then they're entrained by cancer energy, and you have a very rapid growing cancer situation unless you have a check and balance, which Brooke will now go in this with you.
So if you remember with the red blood cells, they don't have the nucleus, so they take on the formation. That's why they can take on the formation of any organ or bone or structure of the body, or in this case, a cancer. And so that's aiding the cancer to be rapidly grown. So what do you do when to get this thing in check and balance? Proteolytic enzymes, that's right. And what that does is it eats up the abnormal tissue and keeps that in check and balance until you can come out of or through that painful or hyperactive level, okay, and feel really, really great and enthusiastic that you're unconscious.
I'd like to state this. The proteolytic enzymes are secreted from the pancreas under normal circumstances. But nearly everyone has a very hypoactive pancreas, and therefore a very low level of secretions from the pancreas. And as a result of this, chymotrypsin that's not there, which is converted into trypsin, which eats up the abnormal tissue as a check and balance, it just isn't there. There's no strength to the pancreas because the person has a weak pancreas. Therefore, you have to have extra added, consistent taking into the body of different proteolytic enzymes. One of the best ones we have is from the papaya. They call it the pawpaw or the papaya. Now this material comes from the mature green papaya, and that mature green papaya will be the papain, which you find just inside of the cover of the papaya, into about 1/4 of an inch in the green mature papaya, which is just before it turns ripe. Now you've got to have that, or you have your papaya from Enzymes International. And right now I'm very disturbed because I had one report that is not confirmed yet, that everything from the United States coming in, even the enzymes, are being irradiated, which I do not know how much that's going to affect the enzymes. Now this is bothering me a little bit. Okay, I don't know how widespread this is on imports, but it's going to mean that all of us in our various countries will eventually have to be totally independent of any other country, that we can control the quality of product, that the people will be helped. And we got a job on our hands, folks. And this is where every country, we have a number of countries here, and you're going to have to be totally independent of every other country because of the continual onslaught of the nuclear power to sell these little machines that just to get rid of the cesium waste that's there. We all know that. And this is a byproduct of the continuation of the nuclear industry that the United States, the United Kingdom, and France are still fully involved in, along with Russia. And I look at all these treaties for doing away with nuclear proliferation, this sort of thing. It's nothing but a hoax, the whole thing. It's just a political ploy to keep the people quiet, while the majority of their best nuclear physicists are still going full power to create weapons to kill people. Now you know that. I hope you know that, because this is what's happening. And we're all involved in it because we're all subject to it. And we're going to be subject to the nuclear fallout from all the testing that's still going to continue. That's a hot subject on my part, but I think that it's necessary to look at, because this in turn will affect the strength of people, more and more weakness in people because of the radiation fallout, more and more cancer, and so on. So therefore, get this information down. Continue on, Brooke. And then Doug, after Brooke's done, I want you to follow through.
So just to get back to the level of, or the scale of emotions, if we're all at the level of unconsciousness, we've got this aggravated or accelerated growth of trophoblastic tissue or with placenta tissue, then, and the pancreas, I mean, the level of unconsciousness is at level 7, and the pancreas is at level 5, and if the chymotrypsin isn't being secreted, the pancreas is not working very well. It's very, very important to stay on a good amount of proteolytic enzymes, whether it's from the papain from the papaya that John's talking about, or whether it's like in New Zealand and Australia here, where you can get the kiwi fruit, which has the actinidin in it, which is again a very, very good source. Or whether it's your enzymes or what have you. There's a couple of other like figs have the phycin, or pineapple is really, really good as well. What's a bromelain? Bromelain from the pineapple. So these sort of fruits are sometimes necessary. It's important that we take these in one form or another until we get the chymotrypsin, or until we get that pancreas working properly, which is up at level 5. So do you all understand that? Okay, so...
Any questions on that? This is such an important issue.
Yes?
Is there any backtracking once the person has started the program?
I would say once you've started the program, you're on it until you get the pancreas taken care of. Then you're in a position where the pancreas is working, you have a good check and balance, no problems. Okay? And at that time you can ease off for a while, take a vacation, relax a little bit. Okay, and I think you're out of danger once the pancreas is working properly. This is my finding. But until that pancreas is working properly, and that's reflex to the adrenals, and you see the changes in the iris of the eye, the person has passed their measure of corn and fuzzies and cancers and whatever is in there, okay, and they're on their way to healing. At that time, you might ease off a bit and relax a little bit on your path, but not until then.